Look, it's RB551. No wonder he got blasted. He's one of those older models programmed by a central computer. Not us. We're independent thinkers. Roger, 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 roger.
So, I don't know where we want to start it, so I guess I'll just let you come in because you reached out to me a little bit on Eric Hunley's Locals channel, and as I am wont to do, I like everybody to pressure me and not hide from anything or get anything out in the open. So this is our chance to just talk like normal and let other people know that they can do the same thing and have normal conversations.
Yeah, I mean, I've been stoked. I've been telling people I get a chance to make an ass out of myself, because I said I'm a high school dropout. I was not educated by any means. My education came from my mom dragging me around to the libraries to look up her genealogy. And so I was looking at microfilms as a little kid. And my mom, her dad was killed when she was 5 years old. And my mom hated guns. We had one in the house because she was a single mom, and things like that. But the gun had been given to her after my real dad was put in prison, and or I, this is there's a lot of my history that is very confusing because of the criminal cases that went down, and then the history that the family did not want me to know. I was very young when it happened, and child molestation just makes everybody look bad. So, anyways, I grew up with this gun, and my mom hated them. We couldn't point at each other, and make it the gun signal or anything like that. My mom was just anti-gun, and I don't think you could say she's anti-gun. She was very it messed her up, they having her dad taken away when she was little. Well, anyways, the violence thing, like when you were talking about, oh God, how do we put it? The the historical violence, and the crime and it being racist. Oklahoma is this is one of those things I was talking to you about the Native Americans. Like when we were doing our genealogy, come to find out, our last name in Choctaw, the base word in it is Ubby. And so my mom grew up because her dad was killed, which is the Choctaw side of the family where she got it from. She had the last name Tubby, because they'll put like Mauggie or Kiowa, and there's different types of Ubbies, right? But it means killer. And so like it she was being made fun of being called fat, by an anglicized name because it was no longer spelled like the Choctaw spelled it, obviously, because of white people being the census takers. And anyways, she grew up with that that going against her because she didn't know her family, and how you talk about if you don't know, then you can't hurt you. And I think you were doing that. I can't remember the gentleman's name. He was the longshoreman that you were talking to uh, in the last video.
About guns
Yeah,
or
I I think it was about Black Lives Matter. Or
okay.
he was the guy from North Carolina.
Yeah, I remember what you're talking about.
Right. Yeah, that was the last video that you posted that I watched. And anyways, when he was talking about, this idea of self-regulating the violence, every brother in every generation since they got to Oklahoma, or no, not every brother, but in every generation, one brother out of five brothers, one would go to prison for murder. And it's this idea that the violence was a real thing in, Oklahoma because this place was pretty Wild West like, even into the 1940s, 1950s. It still is sometimes. Things can get Western real quick around here.
Sure.
And anyways, like when we talk about the weapons and stuff, they, um, the violence seems to have been ingrained. It's not. I think it's abuse. Like when you talk about it's not just environmental because this was happening long before lead was a toxin in our environment to the levels it is today. You
Sure.
know, and anyways, but we don't know, and the tribes they were some of the most diverse people. In like the we're on my Cherokee side, my grandmother's side. Um, the way we our Cherokee bloodline actually died. The matriarch died on the Trail of Tears. She died like 200 miles from making it to Oklahoma, and so her kids were actually raised by an Irishman. That was her husband, and he was recognized by the tribe. And it was only because he was married and he had had children, which was very rare from what we understand, you know. And he also was related to General Stan Wadey. And General Stan Wadey was the highest ranking Confederate general that was not a white man. He was a Cherokee. And he was also the last, this might be incorrect, but he was the last person to, or last army to surrender to the North. And I think they had to get him all the way in Florida. And, you know, it's the I think in today's culture, you know, they just always make everything white, black. They don't want to see it in between, you know. And and I don't want to argue for the Confederates or against them. You know, what I want people to do is to look at things more openly and stop hating each other. You know, over something that is we I thought we were past this because I mean I don't. You're a little bit older than me, but man, we made some spicy jokes with each other, and it
The
usually was.
90s were awesome.
Right. And what happened to that? Like that, I'm not saying that, you know, that it was always okay because some people did get offended. But you know, my brother would like he had me convinced as a little kid that I was German. And like you had told me, and that was something I connected to you with because there was a picture. I shared it on Viva Barnes, but it was of the family that went to prison. It was the family that that person came from, right? They were good people. He was a bad apple. You know, everybody else was engineers, priests, and you know, preachers, served honorably in the military. He was the one that was the bad apple. But anyways, when you look at that picture, they're sitting in front of a Nazi flag. Well, when you take a 4-year-old and you show him that picture and it's your half brother that you're, you know, and he's like, "Oh yeah, your dad was a Nazi." you you believe it. You got picture evidence, you know. And today's media, I want people to see that. They're like, dude, I was convinced for so many years until I started even because my mom didn't want to really look into my hit, you know, my genealogy, obviously, or the my family name heritage, and I can't blame her, you know, because the trauma that she had went through. And it's just it's one of those it's I said we sit here and we beat our heads in and I when earlier I made a comment to you is like this is more of that damn word magic. And I used to love this in high school. I got or when I made it to intermediate, I decided to get into to debate. And I gave up football in the end to stay in debate. I gave up sports to because I love debate so much. And I wasn't that good at it. I won some awards, but normally I just piss people off. And I was very pedantic and, you know, just a stupid kid that thought he was clever. But we were arguing about abortion, religion, and guns weren't even a conversation in 2002. You know, it was just a given that everybody you can't get rid of the Second Amendment. And that was one of the big things. I was really surprised when I listened to Crimes and Punishment, your book that you put out, the audiobook. I listened to that thing like 3 times to try to even just wrap my head around it. I weld as for a living, so you know I just sit there and I can, as long as I'm not grinding, I can usually hear pretty well, you know, through my headphones. So, anyways, I went and that was just the one thing is like, is it that you believe that guns are a force multiplier that shouldn't be in the hands of people that are likely to have these biological malfunctions? Or because when I got out of the military, I had a different view on guns until I seen things changing. Or I don't know how to. Maybe I just had more faith in institution, and then I was looking at it from the outside, going, "These people are idiots. They are just walking us straight to annihilation." So maybe you can.
Yeah. So we have about one, two, three, four, five different things
Right,
that
I'm a
we hit
very
on.
scatterbrained person. Sorry.
So let me reel those in a little bit so that we can get some structure to it.
Yeah.
Um, so we'll get to the guns, but one thing I want to say is I'm not making. I actually don't give my opinions, and one of that kind of struggles to people. You're going to have to specifically ask for my opinion to get my opinion. One of the past things when I've talked about the guns issue is I've just been making arguments about the actual structure of it is face the reality of what our rules are. Now, do you think you have a this is pedantic. Do you think you have a right to self-defense with a gun? Then fine. What I'm telling you is the US Constitution does not grant you that right. It doesn't.
Just
What
gives
it
you a right to bear
says,
arms.
right, you have a right to bear arms against a tyrannical government. That is the principle it's based upon. So you have a military argument there, in which case I say, hey, you might not actually have a right to lower grade weaponry in according to the Constitution, because the Constitution is saying military weapons. It's actually saying you have a right to military weapons, and it's saying nothing about regular grade weapons. And that's all I'm saying with that. And so when I say if you want to attack handguns, obviously AR-15s and stuff like that aren't the issue. This isn't the problem. The problem is handguns. So if you want to, you can have at the same time that you can ban handguns or you can ban ammo, which isn't in there. And I understand what you're saying by saying no right, it cannot be infringed. I totally get that. But that is pertaining to military weapons, and these low grade weapons aren't an actual military weapon. And I think that would be consistent with many of the arguments that pro gun people would be making, is they're saying, look, these aren't assault weapons, these aren't military weapons. And I'm saying, yeah,
I
right.
am I this like and like I would not to go off topic, the sideline on this. It's just when you dive into the writings that underpin the reasonings and stuff, our founding fathers were quite aware of what was going on. The guys were they were flawed people, but I think it's some
Totally understand that, but
and
I want that in
they
writing.
right, and that's where I think me and you, I love that you do this because you're like, and it needs to be codified, and they left so many things open
Right.
for it to be interpreted. And one of the things in your book you hit on is judicial power, and that has to be reined in. I mean, it is they are legislating from the bench, and we have complete current. I mean, look at how Epstein was able to walk free for so many years. That took a prosecutor, a law enforcement agency, and the judge. It all took all three institutions that are supposed to be there, and they all failed because
Totally.
because why? Because there's a profit margin to be had there, and you can't and you can't get the left or the right to just shut up for 5 seconds about this and be like, dude, this is not a politic thing. This is corruption. Like both sides stand to make money while we sit here and we fight each other over the little things. We all agree we want violence to go down. And like I said, when I got out of the military, my parents and we went at it a few times because I was like, you are untrained. You don't know what the hell you're doing. Because like you say, like you don't understand the training and the base. Like I sat there with a damn cleaning rod and a dime, practicing going from safe to pulling the trigger and making sure that thing didn't come off. And here you are just thinking you can go into the store and buy one of these things and you even understand about the lethality of what you're holding in your hands. And my mom, I actually said her that my dad I wanted me to teach her to clean her AR that he had bought her. And this is 2009. And I set her down and my mom got her cell phone out. And this is probably one of the few times my mom ever had me get rude with her. And it was just something that was ingrained into me. I'm like, you need to put your damn phone down. You're going to pay attention. This is important. And I think she didn't get upset with me. That was one of the few times that I probably could get away with that without getting smacked. But it's so not instilled into the average person. And it's the same way on job sites. I have the same like I get called the mama bear. I get picked on. Because I'm so pedantic about safety. What people don't realize is I've been smoking weed since I got out of the military, and it wasn't legal until 2 years ago, and it's still not legal in most of what I do. And if I get hurt, I don't get paid. And so why would I sit there and ever take a risk? It's just a job. And
Totally.
people they don't and like I even stopped welding and went into the management side of it, and it's the same thing. I couldn't take the chance. I didn't want the chance of somebody to get hurt on my job site and then come in and be like, piss in a cup. Oh, you got them hurt because you were high. And I'm like, I'm not incompetent because I was high, or because I smoke weed at night. You guys are idiots. And that's like, I just have some major disenfranchised issues with our system because there's no way that you can have so much inequity. And I don't want equity. You can't have inequity being forced on people while you got Hunter Biden snorting lines of coke and Skittles on his dick and horrible, like there's just crap. I mean, like we're busting down like Rick Ross, the real Rick Ross. That man couldn't read, and you guys put him in prison, and then you turn around and this is I just, and I can't, you can't have two be the same. It's like I want something done about Derek Chauvin, but Derek Chauvin, that case, you can't be guilty of murder and manslaughter. It's a logical fallacy. And I've had people screaming at me at this, and I'm just like, dude, are you guys willing to let all of this break down just for your simple, your gotcha moments? Anyways,
Yeah, I think they might be.
they
It's-
are like, and I don't know, like, I don't know what the Marine Corps has on this, but man, we can't. You can't let people get in mobs and do this. This is Paris, France, 17, or France and Paris in 1791. We are quick with these crowds making decisions, and you can't reverse what you're gonna. And like I've been on all kinds of websites I shouldn't be on, that have been labeled domestic terrorist locations, trying to talk sense into some of these people, and of course you can't. They're radicalized. They're no different than the radicals over in the Middle East, and
yeah.
thankfully they haven't went terroristic yet. They haven't went kinetic on anybody, but they're all gunning up for it, both sides. I mean, you know that it's happening. And people, when I try to talk to people, random people about this, they're like, man, you're going to get put on a list. And I'm like, I don't care anymore. I really don't. You people, like, nobody's going to talk up, nobody's going to speak up, nobody's going to sit here and tell you guys are marching towards horrible, horrible things. I want things to change too, but you can't do it this way. Revolution never goes well for the people, and I'm a poor uneducated idiot, and I know how this is going to go, and everybody else wants to pretend that they know more. And,
Yeah, getting us reeled back in so we can
yeah,
we,
sorry.
we can we can go through with the guns thing. And what I'm arguing is that my opinion is that you should have it codified that you have a right to self-defense and that you have a right to hunt, and that's not what's codified. And like with my Rogan appearance, when people argue about how I said you can regulate manufacturing, and that's just a quick answer off the top of my head. And when people talk about gun things you can do, the idea that they're actually fighting the gun thing, I really don't think they are, because there are things you can do.
I
There
see
is
what you're
no
saying.
law against regulating ammo, and there is no law against regulating manufacturing. So it doesn't. It says you have a right to own it. It doesn't say you have a right to have somebody make it for you. It
So
doesn't.
it's theater. So what you're saying, like, it's not only is it's they're not making genuine arguments because they do have a method, they have a way, but the judicial branch
Right.
has probably cut their. But also the fact is that it's theater. They need something to go up and to throw back and forth, and then it ends up usually, I mean, like so many other things, it ends up being the judicial branch that once enough consensus has came to something, they'll do it. And that's kind of like how they're trying to reverse that AR ban in California or whatever for that's been in place for 30 years. And I'm just I don't have anything against that judge's movement, but California, they're their own state, so if they legislated this stuff, are you guys not going back and just cutting the throat of the people that actually had that ability? Maybe if they wanted it changed, it should have been the people to vote in the change.
Yeah, I'm not sure you can vote in the change, especially when you would be talking about overwhelming the Constitution. So it does get a little complicated. I
the
don't.
two
I think
thirds
it's
and all
clear you
that.
don't have a
Yeah.
right to ban an AR-15. Um, the difference between an AR-15 and an M16 is burst. For some
Yeah.
reason, people think an M16 can automatic fire. It cannot.
Yeah.
And the vast majority of the time, you are not using burst. Talking about people not knowing weapons, burst
Yeah.
is used for suppressive fire. It is not used to actually shoot it at people. It's used to just make people keep their head down.
We used it to run through ammo one time. We needed to
Right.
get rid of some ammo one time, and we were allowed to put our weapons on burst. That is the only time because burst is you can't. You know how it is. You can't control the recoil. Like it's easier to control to set your body and mind up to that individual trigger pull, and you can speed that motion up faster than you can let a machine sit there and decide when you're going to feel that impulse. And they know nothing about weapons. If they would have shot anything or had the opportunity to do it, they would know this. But and like I said, I wish there was a way to have a system that would educate people in this. Because I took my hunter safety course when I was like 10 years old, and I've had 100%. And there was adults in my class failing. And, I think I was 8. I don't know. I was very young. I was only one of the youngest people in my hunter safety course, and there was adults failing, and these people just got the test. They were told everything, but they're so self-righteous and like that's where I think maybe I'm a little authoritarian inside, just because I wish people would have the same give a damn that I do, but you can't force that. And I don't know what the answer is. I
Yeah, we
wish I did.
certainly cannot force that. Um, one thing I want to take you back on is the violence correlates.
Yep.
So you made a statement that it's not just lead poisoning. Of course, it's not just lead poisoning. So
Yeah.
uh, to explain to everybody listening and to you to just go over it real quick. Everything I've researched, I have found four causes or correlates essentially of violent crime. Are they causes? You can't say that, but especially with lead poisoning, it's a cause. It is such a strong correlate. It's inarguable.
I'm with you on on lead being, but go ahead. I would like
But
to hit
what I'm
those three.
talking about is it's generally, and not always, these things will change order. It's generally the most prominent, and I think it's by far the easiest thing to fight. It doesn't have anything to do with changing people. It has to do with getting something out of the environment. And you don't even have to take it punitively. This doesn't have to be a state violence issue. You don't have to handle it that way. This can literally be done without violence, without the prison system, and something that we can easily do to get that thing off the board so that we can focus on the other correlates. The second strongest correlate is economic inequality. And where this comes in is people almost always say poverty causes crime. And poverty is completely inversely correlated to crime. The poorer you are, the less likely you are to commit violence. And if you take a global perspective, there are tribes in Africa that haven't had a dollar amongst them for years and years and years, and there's almost no violence whatsoever. It is about seeing people that are rich and have access to resources that you do not, then they are in front of you, and that ties all the way down to the history of back when we were fighting Neanderthals. They had resources we wanted. We didn't necessarily have to be mad at them, but this was a disparity that had to be overcome.
Right.
And speaking of Neanderthals, that is the other race of humanoids. There are no races within Homo sapiens. Homo sapien is the race. Neanderthals was another race. That's why we could interbreed. But we can get to that later.
Right. Or
The third,
we'd be like a zebra horse that can't,
right.
procreate or again. Yeah.
So the economic inequality is the second strongest. But right now, we will see in areas of Chicago, in areas like Portland and Seattle, we're starting to see the third cause come up more often, which is local instability. And this is the main thing that police actually fight, is police do keep a lid on things getting out of control. Local stability is extremely important, and ideas of local stability are things like the government keeping control of things, so societal order, fatherless homes are a huge one, of lack of just immediate resources. For instance, water. I mean, we're so spoiled, but go ahead and go a few days without water and see how violent you're willing to become for the sake of water.
Johannesburg, South Africa. Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
examples all over the place. And if there's a lack of employment opportunities, yeah, you're going to find some correlates in that. But that's usually a more minor correlate to violence. And right now, in a lot of places, it's definitely escalated to number one or number two. And the fourth thing is the police themselves, which obviously sounds a little bit counterintuitive, but police, and we can get, that's going to move us into the difference between violence and aggression. Police are actually aggression, not violence. But that's the general definition of violence, is using force like that. And the police then are actually, they commit 1 in 17 of the homicides in the United States. So they're obviously a huge correlate to violence, because it's our answer of using violence to quell violence.
Right. And it's almost impossible to stop. It's not impossible, but with the current affair, like you mentioned this in your books about the police being, well, how did your phrase for it is the proximity to violence.
Yes.
We don't want somebody running around shooting innocent people, so we want police around. Well, if you then take those same police and the people that are supposed to go after hardened killers, because this would be like the military using MPs to go then start doing nighttime raids on Al Qaeda. It would be ignorant. That would be wrong for the MPs to be doing, and it would also be robbing the job, from CAG or whoever. And I
People
think
much better suited to do it.
right, and I think that we're trying to make a one tool fits all situations. And so when we're mocking this idea of sending a social worker with the cops, maybe we should not send cops to go do social working work, but also,
If the person has a history of being violent, or if it's a domestic abuse case, you have to have a cop there, because how many of those? It's like 80% of those go violent or whatever, towards the cop. Isn't that the number for it? It's
I don't know
insane.
the exact number, but it is the most dangerous call that police face.
Right. And I mean, I feel for those cops, but also then I see videos and people are like, well, he was reaching, so that justified that cop shooting. And I was like, that cop's a pussy. Like, I'm sorry, but like, if you tell me, and I mean, like, not in every situation,
I'm
but
going to object to that. He is a pussy. They're almost all pussies, but it's a different reason. But we can hit
right,
that
but
later.
right, it's the training. It's the training, right? And,
Partially
but,
depends. The
and then
genetic
also,
issue as well.
yeah, and like and I'm not gonna say I would be any better in every one of those situations, but I just there there was training that we were doing, in '06, '07, that they were trying to find people that had that problem. We were they an infantry should never be looking at a domestic call, but they had us doing those. There was something called the S2000 where they had infantry units sitting in a little computer room doing domestic violence simulations, and you'd be surprised how many people thought they were good enough to take a shot with a gun pointing towards the victim's head and things like that. And it blew your
That's not going to
mind.
go well.
Right. Yeah. And like, and I
It's
was
a
a
rare
17,
skill.
right. And yeah, it's just one of those things. Like, I'm a kid and I'm making decisions that my sergeants don't understand. And I had a lot of problems in the military because of that. I was a dumb person to think that I would go make the world a better place. Let's just say that.
Yeah, I'm still perplexed about that for sure. I think there's some nuance to it, without a doubt, and that can get us into let's break down this difference between violence and aggression. And I know when people, especially like you were explaining about some of your history, when people have been subjected to violence or aggression, they actually become the kind of worst people to evaluate it, because it takes away their objectivity and starts to put them in a place where they're kind of defensive and think they understand what happened to themselves in the past. The metaphor I always use is, just because you were in a car crash does not grant you the understanding of physics, and that is kind of where we're coming from. So let's talk about aggression. Aggression, we often call anything that is somebody using force against somebody else as violence. And my all my work says that that's not true. That there's definitely a distinct breakup between the types of violence, if we even want to categorize them both as violence. There is violence that betrays our genetic makeup. Human beings are the most cooperative species that have ever walked this planet. And that is why we have so much success. That is why we dominate it. We are actually vastly suited towards peace and conflict avoidance and working together to build societies. I don't understand how much more evidence we need. We can literally go up in spaceships and sit there and watch the magic creations and changing of this earth that we have done, and species that we have saved that could never have been saved before. And this wild understanding. We are hugely cooperative. So when something happens and breaks that, it can be a temporary type of insanity where you can really shocks the character, or they can have long-term things like lead poisoning is a long-term biological malfunction, because the lead goes into you as a child, and then as you grow up, you don't have the same impulse control, you have anger issues and stuff like that is biologically rooted. And when those people do things, there's not a cause. You can say they have intent. They can write down that they wanted to do this for a certain reason. Like, there was a guy recently that went out to go kill white people because he thought, and that's why he said he went to go kill all these people because they were white. Now, I just don't believe that. He didn't do it because he's white. He did it because he was fucking crazy. And then the society gave him the suggestion of who to point to. The killings were going to take place anyway. He was having the biological malfunction. And what happens is the aggression that's different is, say that person's coming after you and you defend yourself and kill that person. This is obviously not the same thing. This is something different. If you call the police and they come and kill the person, that's obviously something different. That is not a biological malfunction. That a rational choice to deal with someone else's biological malfunction, or a rational choice to deal with a misunderstanding, some a view of reality that you don't have. And that can be something small, like thinking somebody is going to kill you when they actually weren't, but you do something then that is not violence. That is not something that came out of nowhere. That is not betraying your genetic makeup. This is something that you have had to decide to do. And the things that you can decide to do when you're talking about the family history and repeating the processes, the things that you decide to do can only be taught to you, because we do not have free will. And that is a very difficult thing for people to accept. And whether I'm not making an argument from popularity or authority, but the vast majority of the world believes that we don't actually have free will. If you believe in an omniscient God, then you automatically cannot believe in free will. If we have science that shows that watching the brain, I don't know whether it's an MRI or CAT scan or however they were watching it, but they can say whether you're going to choose to go left or right before your conscious brain can tell you that, because the process actually occurs in your subconscious, and then your consciousness becomes aware of it and thinks that it's its own thought and its own genuine thought, when it's actually occurring in the background.
Yeah, that'd be fMRI. Yeah, that's
Thank
what
you.
yeah.
So the thing that you have that's going on in the background can only be things that are presented to you. That's my main objection with talking about race. You cannot identify as black and being different from the white person unless somebody taught it to you. Your history with one brother being violent and the thing, they cannot have murdering somebody on their table if it wasn't taught to them to do that, unless they're going through a biological malfunction, which is a entirely different issue. That is a medical issue that needs to be treated with science, not with reason and argument. Everything about free will is that we only have at best what is a multiple choice test, and all the things that we have been presented to us as options can be on this multiple choice test, and maybe we can have some influence on which of those things are there or which of those multiple choice we choose. But I don't even think that that's the case. I think all the input we've had through our lives will decide which is the most prominent of those different choices, and that's the one we would take every other time, being from outside choices that have been presented to us. So what the beauty of that is everything we are doing is literally changing everyone around us and changing their multiple choice test. And one thing that if there's anything we could do consciously, and this is something that I haven't taught myself, we got to understand this is not my free will. This is information I have absorbed from other things, is that if we don't put on the multiple choice these options of division, they actually can't occur. So the best thing we can do is ignore and put in the past a lot of things that we care about deeply, such as our gender or our race or what people have done to us in the past, or even talking about suicide or talking about how you've been victimized. If you go on the record and preach about how you've been victimized, you will literally give other people this excuse that they've been victimized and this idea that they can victimize others.
I've watched that happen. I've watched that happen. It's like cancer in the military. It is, and I'm sure you've seen it too. You've probably seen it more towards boot camp, but that guy that has to be removed because he's infectious. You can, anyways. The attitude is what I mean by that. That's maybe not necessarily towards the violence thing, but like as far as like it's hard to explain because like when I was a kid, man, I wasn't inherently violent, but like in kindergarten, actually probably wasn't considered inherently violent. If a kid was pushing a girl, I was told when I was little, boys don't hit girls, and I tell them to quit, and if they didn't quit, I hit them, and I'd get in trouble every time, and I would say I don't care, right is wrong, this is right, they were wrong. And the teachers were like, well, then you're in trouble. And that was my school career. I got more trouble for fighting because I thought something was, I'd seen somebody do something else. I had a white knight complex. If I seen somebody picking on somebody, I wanted to get it.
We're together. I still do it today. I bully bullies. It is my thing.
Yeah, it's a bad habit. It'll get you in a lot of trouble.
Well, at this point in time, I got to tell you, Chris, I have embraced it. I have decided that is what I am. You've actually invested millions of dollars to make me good at it. So I may as well just do it. And if you don't like it, don't create people like me.
Right. Yeah, that's my the better three-quarters of me tries to tell me all the time, you just can't be taken to general public. You are way too brash. You say things that people don't like to hear.
Now you know my position on police. You got it.
Right, and
So
like
you
my
need people like us to kick down doors, to fuck people up, and to go and do that hostage scenario. But God Christ, please don't send me to your minor bullshit. Somebody hit your car, or you're getting in a squabble with your neighbor, or your kid won't go to school. I am the wrong tool.
yes, you were trying to use a hammer where you might need a scalpel. Right? And that is like, back literally to what you were saying, you can cut these cancerous tumors out of people and it completely changes their mental makeup. And I'm 100% behind you because I mean, to your mental health aspect, or, not, it's not really mental health, but, I did time in Walter Reed, and the, that was there for PTSD. And it was one of those things where they threw drugs at me, and dude, I went down a bad path from the second they put drugs in my system. It completely changed me. My mom will like, when she seen me when I was getting out of the military, I was on all kinds of pills, and she just said that I looked like I had no soul. Everything that was coming out of my mouth, they had turned me off, and turning off my emotion was not a good idea, because if you take what we know how to do and you take away my compassion, that's a very, very dangerous combination. And I wonder if so much of these cop scenarios, or military scenarios, is that what's going on? Because I might be a savage at heart, but I don't like injustice. I don't like things going wrong. I'm one of those people that I will stop and get a damn turtle off the road. I'm just that's always been me. When I was little, that was the type of person I was. I was raised to be kind. I was raised to help people. And that's still my nature. But put me with a crowd around me, I'm not very helpful. I'm a very guardy person, and I don't like, and that, but anyways, that back to that mental health aspect, it's I was, discharged from the military for, having a personality disorder, because when somebody challenged me to a fight that happened to be an NCO and I took him up on that challenge, he backed away. Well, you don't get to put us out. You wanted this, and now you want to pull rank. And when I went to go leave, he went to go pull rank again, and I didn't let that happen, and that was my end. And that has always been this is not a good thing, but I have never been able to let somebody think that they can do wrong to me, and I won't pull the ultimate move. Because like when people and it's, like, what if you want to call it impulse control, I have the thought process, and my thought process is always bet. You think I won't do it? Watch me. And
Or tell me I can't.
tell me I can't. Oh yeah, there's some shit I've done in my life, and people are just like, I can't believe that. And you're like, well, if there's a will, there's a way for a lot of stuff. The human mind and the human body are amazing things. They are also crappy things. They fail you when you least expect it.
I
But
totally get it.
yeah. So, anyways, like what you were saying about the mental health, I went down the drug path, and this whole idea that people joke like you couldn't walk through Annapolis, Maryland and stuff, being a white guy. I'm like, dude, I was on my way out of the military. I was pretty much ready to die, doing whatever I could do to help that along, whatever drug I could find, because I went down a pretty bad path, and I walked into the ghettos, thousands of dollars in my pocket, never had a problem. Nobody's going to touch me, and I don't, and it this is what I try to tell people, like these places that are so violent, so dangerous. It's all it is a piranha. Are you the biggest fish in the sea? Sure, they might try to take me from behind, but just don't put yourself in that compromised position, and you can go get away with some dangerous shit. And these people won't do anything. They're cowards. Most of them are. They're thugs, and they will hold honor, but most of them can be ran off with violence. Real, true, scary shit violence. They don't want it. And I that's what I don't. I did maybe I was misunderstanding your position on violence, or maybe we're just completely in agreement that you only use that violence for those people that think they want violence. Is that you're pretty much for our police?
I mean, there are ones that just aren't thinking. I mean, there's just not a process happening. It's pure reaction. And when we talk about the military, this is kind of an example too. When you say the training, my basic premise is that this isn't actually training isn't the universal thing. Training only works for the person who adequately can handle going into a fight response. You're not really thinking, it's muscle memory training, and you're relying on these proper techniques and procedures to get you out, and they're coming from your subconscious. And those kind of people can mostly make it through and they'll be okay. But the operator that you actually want is the one that isn't doing a fight, flight, or freeze response. They actually genetically don't do that, or they're not prone to do it genetically. And those are the people that are think clearly throughout. They're not relying on muscle memory. They're not relying on training. They can operate completely out of the box and completely out of their training because their mind is functioning clearly. And I think the best example of this to show anybody is to go through the school shootings, and you will find out that the majority of school shootings are stopped by an unarmed teacher who, with their bare hands, disarms the shooter. And what happened was that person had no training. They're not from anywhere. They just genetically don't have a fight, flight, or freeze response and thought with clarity.
Wow, I'd like to see the numbers on that one, because like I I can't say, I'm obviously not a doctor, but I have there are certain things where like chaos, I thrive in it. Like it's when
You might
everybody
not have the response.
right. Oh, I mean, I think I do have the response though, because in really, especially when I was younger and there was violence, I blacked out. I couldn't tell you what I did,
So you went in a
and
fight.
right, and but that was that I can tell you flashbacks of it, but that's it. But I don't run. That's what I only fight.
Sure.
And I've obviously ran. What I mean, but it's if I get cornered, and this is back to the military thing. While on those drugs, on my way out, 11 cops went to arrest me. Or there wasn't 11 cops, but I went into handcuffs and shackles, or not shackles yet, but I went into handcuffs willingly. I did not resist. I was, I knew the whole gig. And then as soon as I was hit, it didn't matter they were cops anymore. And for 4 hours, it went down. We went at it. And the only reason I'm a free man today is because of what I did in the military and what those cops did that night. If it would have been any other situation, any other judge, I'd probably be sitting in prison for the rest of my life, or most of my natural born life. And I got very lucky for that. But that was, it it didn't matter. It doesn't matter the authority, and that I don't mean harm to those men, but I'm not sorry. I'm sorry that I acted a fool, but they're the ones that they wanted to prove themselves, and they got exactly what they thought they didn't want, in my opinion. And I had to leave that town, but that's the nature of being an asshole. But they all got Brazilian jiu-jitsu training after that. So
Well, I mean, that's the thing is if you go into fight, I think you can be trained, right?
right.
And you can be, this is not an insult, you can be a soldier, but you can't be
You're
the
not
one
going to be an
calling the
operator.
shots.
You're not the operator. No. And
So-
I openly admit this. Like people always want me to do leadership crap, especially if I keep my temper in check and all that. They don't know that about me. They're like, oh man, you're so blah blah blah. I'm like, no, you don't understand. I don't like people. I hate stupid people. If you want me to like, I won't be a cat herder. I'm mean. I will fire people. You will have no crew left. And they don't understand. I'm just like, I don't have people skills, and I do, but I don't want to use them. And uh, I've got worse with age. Um, I've got less cooperative with people.
Yeah, I feel like that happens to all of us, and that's kind of sucks. I've really tried hard to increase my cooperativeness, but I think dealing with people kind of just drives you into isolation when
And
you're.
I did the Joe Rogan thing. I did the DMT. I tried all that crap, man, because I just didn't trust scientists. I was like, man, because I got that anxiety feeling. I would go to Walmart. I would walk to Walmart for like 2 miles at 3 o'clock in the morning just so that I didn't have to worry about anybody or anything messing with me. That was the first few years of me being out of the military. Like I was damaged goods, like, but also I'd had the state come down on me. I got divorced, and the military was hiding stuff. There's, when you get screwed, and I don't mean that it gives anybody an excuse to do something, but man, like you look at some of these people and the way they react with cops, you're like, yeah, man, because they had a bad experience. Like,
Yeah,
if
sure,
you if
sure.
you have a bad experience, I can get that guy getting ready to fight you. And I had the same problem. I got lucky. It wasn't much later from the incident with 11 cops. 2 weeks later, the MPs, I called them dirty, nasty legs and something else while they were on a road march. And it was 9 o'clock at night, and they were coming through a gate by the Iwo Jima Monument in Roslyn, there in Arlington, talking shit, jogged up Cardiac Hill backwards, running my mouth, and then thought I was just going to go on back to my barracks. And no, I had five MPs decided they're going to go and clear my room. And as soon as I opened my door, I told them to F off or whatever. And they went to kick my door and bear mace me while the sergeant on CQ was telling them, you guys need to get away from him. You don't do this, don't do this, yada yada. And then I guess 30 minutes into it, I was on the drugs that Walter Reed had put me on, and I I ended up dying that night. But those MPs, I ended up going to Quantico maximum security and having Marines. Probably one of the few Army people that have ever been under Marine Corps control because the Army didn't want me, as I had attacked their MPs.
So, do you feel like you were exercising aggression or violence in that moment?
Like, man, I could have just let it, I could have let them do whatever. And they said they could hear me messing with my pills, and that was what was going on. And I don't really believe, I don't know. You know, I think there was more to that. It was but anyways, what happened, like the way it was told to me, because I can't remember it, not only was I on all these, and like, if you've seen the drug list I was on, you would understand there was 8 different prescriptions they had me on. Not only was I on Ambien, I was on Klonopin. I had 2 milligrams of Ativan, 200 milligrams of Seroquel. They were trying to calm a big old boy down, and it didn't do nothing. And it just made me worse. But anyways, the way my sergeant that was on CQ that was trying to talk the MPs out of it, because they were like, no, he was drunk in public, and there was only 3 beers in my room to have been drank. So I was obviously from pills. If I drank the beer, I don't know, because ended up dying and had to go to the hospital. Never got to see that room again. But anyways, when he was trying to tell them, when that door opened, I didn't want to be messed with. I shut the door. Well, when they pushed that door open and then they bear maced me or OC sprayed me, um, I couldn't see anymore. And one of them jumped on my wrist and tried to get the handcuff on it. And this is, like I said, coming from the sergeant. And he said I shoved them all back out the door. And I tried to shut the door again. And when it came back open, I just Sparta kicked the first person coming through. And that threw everybody back and threw that sergeant into a crown molding, tore his back up. And anyways, the female MP tried to jump on top of me and start punching me, whatever happened. And he tried to grab that MP or try to tell her to stop hitting me. And he said, like, I just did a setup with everybody on me. And it was shit fest central after that. I took her face to the faucet, split her face open. I couldn't see. So this was just fight. I don't remember meaning this. This is just the way, and like I said, I grew up in martial arts being jumped by my brothers. And, this is the way you grew up in the country. You go get, you're walking through the woods and somebody's hiding in the bushes and jumps you and whoops your ass and run off, and laughing about it. So you learn to react quick. And I don't think that I reacted properly, but I'm not sorry that you blinded me and then tried to punch me in the face and thought that I wasn't going to fight back. Maybe don't send the female into the stack.
But do you think the vast majority of people would make that decision
To run in or to fight back?
to fight like that?
I don't think so. But like, how do you, like, when you have the NCO that knows that person telling you, hey, dude, chill out. Don't think that you want this. He's going to fight you if you're me. And it's the same thing my brother was trying to tell the cops that night. And I think it's his fault the way it went, because I think he got.
Oh, don't blame your brother.
Yeah. Oh no, I'm not blaming. But I mean, I'm saying that my brother told the cops, he got out of the cop car, or he got out of the car first, And the cops, and he was like, "Look, man, my brother's in the he's been in the hospital. Walter Reed's dealing with him. If you're kind to him, he will be absolutely cooperative with you." And that was his words. And everything from that point just it snowballed. So, and that was my response, But the response from the cops were, "We know how to handle guys like him." And when they went to go tell the judge, they put a spit mask on me because I guess when you mace me, I like to spit it back at you. And they put a spit mask on me and were dry stunning me in the neck while spraying the mace down into the mask. And that's probably what saved me, because when the judge seen that, he couldn't really. They were trying to say I was breaking the straps of the restraint chair, and maybe I was, maybe I wasn't. Like I said, I don't really want to see the video. I've only heard about it from everybody that has seen it.
So I'm assuming you believe in evolution, right?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Okay. So does it make sense to you at this point in time why violence would be very much out of our nature, considering the best case scenario is that you live long enough to reproduce and raise your children and protect them? And if you're doing shit like that, your odds go down dramatically.
But also, what do you do when you're being oppressed? Like, who do you got? I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, I'm not saying that this is ever
Well, survivors run.
right. Well, I get it, but also,
I'm just letting you know, survivors
I
run.
so did like I shared the I don't know if maybe that wasn't on. I know it was. It was at that guy named Moldy on Eric Hunley's forum. But anyways, I shared what Custer in Oklahoma. Everybody knows about Wounded Knee, but he killed 140 Cheyenne in Oklahoma as well. That was his before he made rank. That was his where he pioneered his 4-column rush into the unarmed civilians, and 21 soldiers were killed by the Braves that did pick up weapons. And what I'm saying is, if you're going to be massacred, or if you're going to be beat, and you think and I don't think that it's always right, but I will defend somebody that does want to run. But some people just have to want it, and I realize that it's not going to be, it's not the answer. But also, there was an evolutionary point for it. There was a point somewhere in history, because they made the same thing about sociopaths. You don't want, is it sociopaths or I'm not educated, obviously,
Yeah,
but
sociopaths are probably a good thing for society.
right, sociopaths. And I was afraid that I might be a sociopath, but I'm not intelligent enough to be one.
Well, you don't
I
have to be. It just means you don't have emotion. And so I would imagine that the sociopath is going to have a lot of crossover for what I'm talking about, where they don't fight, flight, or freeze because the emotions aren't pushing them into that biological state.
All right. And like I said, most every time this has ever happened to me, it was drug induced. Alcohol was always involved. And that's the engine, if you please, the Native Americans and our inability to process alcohol. And I don't, like I said, I'm not giving that I don't drink now because I just every bad instance in my life started from alcohol, and I have been quite successful at not doing stupid things ever since I quit alcohol. So that might be something else, to that is that I have anger. I definitely have anger. I don't really react on it unless somebody puts me in the situation where they're going to seriously regret getting me to react. But
Sure. So there's another good metaphor. What I'm talking about when it comes to guns is I don't have an opinion. I guess my overall opinion would be completely libertarian, as long as you don't step on anybody else. You do whatever you want to yourself. But there's certainly an argument that if alcohol causes certain people to have a biological malfunction that causes them to commit violence, well, then people are going to have a bit of a case against banning and not having alcohol around, for example.
right. But that's also, look what it did. You cannot regulate human nature with
Agree.
laws. And so and that's where, and what I mean is education. Like when you also talked about fixing this, how do you fix this? Obviously the judges and everything I met in my life did not fix this.
Yeah, state violence is not the answer. No, it's not.
Yeah, right. Yeah, no, obviously. And this is all, and I can tell you, like I said, my story is very convoluted, obviously, because I didn't share it, I don't tell it all in one coherent thing. But when I was little, I was in the woods and my cousin shot an owl. I got in trouble because I found this owl wounded, or he came and got me to show me his trophy, and I am a little softy, and this animal was wounded. We could not kill it with our BB guns. He'd been shooting this poor thing with a BB gun over and over and over, and it wouldn't die. Well, there was two kids that we knew that were home, and they had a 22. So we walked back out of the woods, and there was two cops patrolling the neighborhood because a dog had been shot. On the complete other side of the neighborhood, obviously we weren't even being accused of shooting that dog, but we had happened to have the 14-year-old with a gun, and then two 9-year-old and an 8-year-old with a gun. Ours were BB guns. The 22 was never even used. The 14-year-old and me, or the two 14-year-olds and me, both were put in the cop car and taken to the police station. The 8-year-old that actually did the crime was given back to his mom because he was too young. I don't know what the difference between a 9-year-old and an 8-year-old are. But anyways, I was taken, questioned at the police station. My parents showed up, and I was charged with a felony. And once again, an 8-year-old was not required to go to the state penitentiary and be told he was going to be raped in the ass by prisoners, thinking that you were going to scare me straight. Well, what do? They take you in to talk to your typical prisoners, and one of them happens to be a Marine, or he was a Marine. He was active duty at the time, and he was in New York. And I guess he was an MP or whatever, or somehow he had a pistol that he was legally allowed to have on him. But when somebody tried to take advantage of him and he used that pistol, they put him in prison. And they thought this man was going to scare me. And to me, all it did was show me that the state was corrupted, because might not know the case, everything about the case. But when you take somebody that's serving and they're doing everything they can and you allow them to be victimized, and I do not condone just shooting somebody trying to carjack you, but carjackings don't always go just, in your favor. You might not just get to give up your car, and that's, I would never want to take somebody's right to be able to stop themselves from being further victimized. And then I'd
So do you
also
mean
like
that
to,
with having guns?
man, I just, like I said, with me and the guns, it was only recently that I would even and I wasn't against them. I would go to the range, I would go have a good time. I just didn't keep them in my house. I had weed, and in my state you can own a gun and have weed. Federally you can't, right?
I've
But
always had my guns and I've always had my weed.
right,
So
right, but okay, here's my thing though. Like I made, that meme that shows, the handgun, that's home defense, then the AR, scary home defense, and then you said the flashbang and the tomahawk. I'm the flashbang and tomahawk kind of guy. I would, you fuck up, you coming in my castle. That's all I gotta say. Like I don't give a fuck who you are. You just found a big dude that, and like I said, I maybe that's just the ignorance in me, man. Like I will fight a room full of people, and there's times I've walked away.
sure.
But
So let me ask you a question then. When it comes to guns, here's one of my big problems with a lot of the logic behind it. Is if let's say there's a 90-pound female, she's 25 years old, good shape. If you two fight one-on-one with your fists, what are her chances?
0, maybe.
If
Not-
you
I-
both are the same distance away, staring at each other on an empty street, looking at each other dead in the eyes, and you both have a handgun, what are her chances?
with me or her,
No, you're both armed with the exact same weapon.
if she without the training, I don't give her very good options. With a pistol, anyways. Dude, I mean, I know that you like pistols. The one thing that I have to practice constantly. You have to go to the range to be accurate with your pistol, and it's muscle memory to a point, but I don't. That is such a subjective thing, and this is where I think we might agree on some of the things about guns. Pistols, they scare the shit out of me with people walking around with them. I don't know about you, man, but I don't like everybody having a gun on their hip, and it's not because that you just you watch how they drive a car, all right, and that's where I think the libertarian in me dies at on in traffic, because you just see the in like
Well, I'm a
people are
believer that driving is a privilege, not a right.
right, but Like, man, dude, I didn't have a like I said, I went off the deep end, and I didn't have a license for years. Never got pulled over, never had an issue. And like everybody's like, "How the fuck do you do that?" It's like you don't act like a fucking asshole. Like you don't understand, dude. There's laws. Follow the fucking laws. It's easy. And don't get me wrong, I've watched people get profiled, and and they try to tell me that's not what happened. Like, oh yeah, believe me, we know because like I said, I've operated in the because when I got out, another big thing for me was weed. The I had a friend that was in Operations Red Wing, and he was part of the Human Remains Recovery team or whatever, and it fucked him up, man. He had bad cluster migraines, all that shit, and he had got rolled up for growing his own weed, and so some veterans got together and decided, hey, you know what, we're gonna, I don't have kids, I'm terrified to have them with the way shit goes, but anyways, I would go guerrilla grow and grow weed and then give it to these veterans. And I will never be a rich man. I hate people with money. And it's not that I hate people with money. I work for a rich man, but it's it I will never be rich. I do not want to be rich. I just don't want to be poor. And I think that might be something else like what you're talking about, where if you grow up around being poor, and you don't see other people with wealth, you don't realize what it is. I've seen the absolute wealth of the world, and I've also lived in the absolute slum of the world. I've been homeless, and so I think I get a pretty good, you know, basis from it. Not like in the military, I escorted the president of the United States. When the Pope was here, I was part of that team. All these dignitary things that I did, and so I got to see the wealth. I got to see the stupid officers that we all hate. I got to listen to their stupid speeches from 5 feet away, and you know, uh, that was another thing that just broke me inside. It's like you said, man. They're just getting up there. They're doing lip service. They're not actually doing anything. They're applying the same stupid ideas with a new flavor and expecting a different result.
I'm not even sure it's just a different flavor. I feel like they're actually just even saying that it's the same damn flavor. They're just like, "Oh, this isn't vanilla. This is vanilla," and it's like, bro, that's vanilla. I don't know what you're talking about. It's the same damn shit with a different name. They do it over and over, whether it's
New Coke
police
versus
units or
old Coke.
policies. Yeah, it's exact. It's so it just repeats and repeats and repeats. I'm trying to figure out where you disagree with me with guns, though, because I just want to know.
I don't think
So,
so. I don't
have
think
you?
I don't really think we because like I said, I just don't believe that we can. My big deal is the government should be the last people getting involved in anything because they fuck it all up. And the
Sure.
only thing like the weapons thing, man, there is no way that I would trust the scientist, like I said, I used to be like you made a comment one time like you don't call you're not your own plumber, or you call an electrician when you have a problem. And when I hear that, I'm like, no, I don't. I've done it all. I've literally wired houses. I've plumbed. I've done my own shit.
Well,
I
if you're
teach
an
myself.
electrician, that's fine. But when you hit a hurdle, you ask an electrician. You don't ask your doctor.
Right, right, and like I said, I'm willing to accept answers. Maybe this is that rural culture. You have to do everything on your own. You can't afford to have somebody, and you have to surround yourself, and you will make mistakes. And
But you can't
I
give yourself a colonoscopy.
no, no,
So you're
and
going to need somebody who knows what the fuck they're doing.
but also that's where where we might meet that gun debate thing is, I, you're not going to ever get me to agree that those people that are far removed from society should not have a weapon, because the propensity for violence to be used with that weapon is as a reason enough. And unless that you can, and this is where the my problem with the cops and comes into is I realize that never once are you allowed to use your weapon in defense from a cop. There, no matter what, that will never be in a trial, right? But the problem is,
I've seen successful home
right?
defenses against the
It's not.
police.
Never. I should not use absolutes. But the thing is, it's going to be very hard to prove. The thing is, man, I cannot believe the amount of time, and I've had minimal interactions with cops in the last 10 years. But when I was younger, or 8 years or whatever, when I was younger, they every time they pointed that gun at me, man, that just I couldn't believe it. It's like I don't have anything on me. My hands are up. And you still want to train down on me, like you think that's a good idea, and that the fact that those people get to walk around acting like that, and then the citizen can't have the same right, and not the same right, but not have the same weaponry, the same ability. It just, no, I will never be okay with somebody being like, the government should never have anything we don't have. And at this point, I'm starting to believe the AT4 might be looking on that list too, since they want to use MRAPs and things like that to do, you know, control for letting your business burn down, letting my business burn down, but make sure the courthouse stays up, or their property stays okay.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
almost positive you can buy an MRAP. You can buy a
yeah,
tank.
right. But the thing is the state fucking fleeces me. I'm broke. I, I was laughing the other day. I was like, man, for a guy that's uneducated, once again, I'm a high school dropout. I went to college for 6 weeks for nursing, and they tried to convince me that Florence Nightingale was the modern thing that made science or medical science, because this is woke college 2010 or whatever, and or the beginning of woke college, and I couldn't do it. I just I couldn't believe that somebody's going to try to tell me that Florence Nightingale was the founding of modern science, medical science, and it was just literally because female nurses, and the teacher even tried to tell it to me like that. She's like, "Well, you got to realize females have been held down and yada yada." It's just like, yeah, that's a great excuse to lie to them. Men were bloodletters and women were the beginning of medical science, and that I couldn't do it, and that's the other thing. Like, I appreciate that you have a doctorate, and but the problem is who credits all the information, who backs all the information, and this is the conspiracy theorist side of me and I don't wholeheartedly believe anything, but when the Rockefellers own the institutions, and the Rockefellers somehow always involved with every stupid thing that we do, and these institutions are owned by them. And this was an idea I had for you. You know who People's Pundit is?
Yeah.
Richard Barris. Would you do crowdsource um, research? Like, you can't get your data. You talk about this in some things. They don't want to spend the money to get the data. They don't want the data, and I know that money couldn't necessarily get it. It wouldn't solve everything, but it could open a lot of doors on freedom of information request, and if the data doesn't exist, maybe legislation, but this crowd, like what we had on
What data do
locals.
we need?
Well, you when I was talking about the detainments, right? When every
Uh-huh.
time you get pulled over or thing like that, like I don't think that the cops need more paperwork, but I think that maybe if somebody's actually, and this goes back to qualified
I think you need
immunity,
a technology cure.
man, but technology is so it's.
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
hear you, but I don't. So my main objection: people always want to give us more rules as a cops, and the way the rules were already written as a supervisor in my promotional guide, and the way I say a good day for a shift commander is correctly guessing which rules to break, because it's absolutely impossible to do any kind of a job by the rule. You're just completely bogged down. Now, I understand that the argument that the more you make it difficult for the cops, then there's like a balancing there. You make sure you prioritize what they're going after. There's certainly a solid argument there. But I mean, when I was running the streets, just collecting information and trying to see what's going on, I'm covering a pretty wide geographical area. And I just it would take me it takes you a good solid 45 minutes to do a simple contact receipt. I need to talk to way more people than this is going to allow me to do.
so about that. So something I actually learned at nursing school. You ever heard of Nick versus Knock? All right, it's like
No.
what nurses use when they take inpatients. It's a quick way to get the triage, right?
Okay.
And technology has made a big jump in this.
For people who don't know what triage means, it means your prioritization of who you're going to treat first in a medical emergency.
Right.
But go ahead.
Anyway, so this Nick and Knock thing, it's like it's no different than like a 9-line or anything. You're going through a list of things as fast as possible. Well, when technology got around, it's kind of like when you're typing in Google search, it starts finishing your sentences. This started being implemented, and this is not, and I don't. Like back to the cops, I think body cameras were the best thing that ever happened for the cops, because it showed people that these cops are not animals all the time.
Uh,
There are a lot of.
Anything is any tool it only works for the person in control of it, and as long as police are in control of it, it will only work for them.
Right, but what I mean is that
I'm just saying, as a
it
ground principle, it's still only
right,
going to work
and
for
I
them.
agree with you on this because this is my problem with, like, the Derek Chauvin trial. We could have stopped. We could have helped a lot of problems just by releasing that body cam footage, and they
Sure,
did that on purpose.
sure.
And that was manipulation. I mean, and
But
that
that's because
uh,
the politicians were in control of
ex-
it,
yeah.
and since they're in control of the release, then it will only work for their interests.
And this is where, like, I think your idea about using, scientific, because true scientists or true doctors, or anybody, PhD, their drive is supposed to be trying to understand something. That's why you write a dissertation. That's why you do these things, is because you are trying to further your field. That's why you get your doctorate in a field of
Yeah, it's
interest.
literally what it means.
Right. Like, and I know I'm uneducated, but what I'm trying to say is that, if my dumb layman's ass can understand this, where the fuck are these people at? You
Oh,
know,
they're
uh,
not doing any research.
right.
They're just doing bullshit that will get published so that they can continue their academic careers.
Right. And I mean, it's the same thing with the I mean, because I'm sure you know who James Lindsay is.
Hmm.
The guy that got them to publish Mein Kampf because it was, they took Jew out and made it white man or something. I think is that James Lindsay that did that? I think it's James
No,
Lindsay.
you're talking about Bogosian. I think Lindsay talks about CRT.
Oh yeah, I just know that he did the thing with Ruben where he was messing around. He was Tanya on Twitter, or whatever, and I thought that was James Lindsay that did it, but maybe whatever. But they took, that's the thing, is that you take the pseudoscience crap and it eats up all this funding because it's, you take whatever politician's kid that needs to go to school to meet all their partying needs and their socialite needs. This is it's
Yeah, I mean, it's exactly what I talk about. All these, there are people out here that have tons of PhDs in criminal justice and are police chiefs running entire agencies. And ask any of them if they can even name those four violence correlates that I gave.
right. Yeah,
They have no
I
idea. They have no idea
no,
what they're
yeah.
doing.
I mean, this goes back to the military could give you a school and you could pass everything for it and know nothing about it. You're
Yeah.
like, how the hell did you make it through? Like, oh man, I was the gray man. Like, I bet you were. Holy shit. Like, but that's, no system's perfect, and that's another thing, is we need to stop thinking that we can absolutely get rid of murder. We can do a damn good job and get it a lot lower. Look where we're at from the 70s. Like you said, lead.
Yep.
Maybe that, it's not maybe that came out and we've seen a massive difference.
Yeah, I mean,
And
that can't. That's like correlates don't work that accurately.
well, like, or but usually my other argument to those people that want to change something like that is, then show me what it was. Like, I'm not, this isn't the God versus no God debate where, we can sit here and go in circles about this because nobody can produce evidence. It's like quantum physics, or not quantum physics, but, trying to look at anything past the observable universe. It's all theoretics. There's no way to
Right.
prove it. There will never be a way to prove it. It's fun to go play, but sometimes we need to
That's
get
why I
back to
say
earth again.
reality is unknowable.
Right. Yes. Yeah, and that's like, and that is another thing from high school debate. We used to use that in a critique. Your words are, just chemicals in your brain, that you're then vibrating some, muscle tissue or some tissue in your throat, or whatever, and you're going to try to say that this should have the power to end somebody else's existence. Your words, your
Sure.
thoughts, and obviously there's flawed thinking to that, but I would much rather us go play in that field than to go say every person that has ever shot a gun indiscriminately into a house deserves to be hung. And, I'm sure you've seen some of this crazy crap that people think will solve the violence. And you're like, yeah, look at Somalia. What did that do? You can't be more violent than the violence and it make less violence. And
I
uh,
thought fighting the things that cause violence was just obvious. I didn't know I had to convince anybody.
yeah. I mean, like, it's we do, like, that's really where it's at. But I think I thought we might have disagreed on violence, but we don't. Like, we don't disagree really on laws, on the gun laws, because you really don't have an answer, and I don't have an answer that we can do that's not going to perpetuate more violence. Because that's the other thing, is like, if you do take them away, how do you get them?
Oh,
Because
I'm not interested in taking them away. The only thing that I was interested in is if you
regulating them out.
regulate manufacturing, then you just increase their value to the point where they are essentially going to be more valuable as a collector item or a currency than they will be as a weapon.
Right. And every time there's regulation, it gets corrupted. Look at the FDA right now, like that. And I don't mean to sideline. It's just, everything is like, well, Viva Fry says it all the time. Politics corrupts everything or ruins everything. And it's so true because even in your field, like the FBI used to be trying to honestly report data, and now it's being, it's you could probably get the what they're trying to obfuscate, but they're still trying to word it differently or whatever. From what I understand, like I said, I don't know. There's so much crap going on, and it takes an expert, and you got to listen to people that are in there, like Richard Barris, or I try to listen to Robert Barnes about things. Eric Hunley, Eric has, he does the same thing. He's going to look for the authoritative sources, the real authoritative sources that are willing to admit that yes, I have a theory or I have a pretty good basis on this, and you can tell in their speech patterns. But then you've got the idiots that I'm not against Trump or for Trump, but you have the idiots that they go, well, it's he's got all the answers. Like the fuck he does, like hell, man, the dude can't even fucking answer anything about what you think he can. He has a group of people that make these decisions for him, and he's making the call. And I can't believe that you don't get a job in Chicago. I don't understand why. Like, have you ever visited Oklahoma? That was something else. When I was looking at your map the other day, have you ever done any speeches here?
No, I only drove through it.
Yeah, yeah. I'm sorry, but that was one of the things I was wondering is like, have you looked at maybe? I mean, and I'd realize this is, you know, whatever, but the Native Americans are trying to they're firing up their own marshal services and all that. Have you thought about trying to speak to these guys because they could use a lot of what they're talking about because this is going to be in their wheelhouse. Yes, they're federal, but this is their chance to do it different. They're it's not they don't have the hate yet. The white
Yeah,
horsemen
I
aren't.
mean, if they were interested, I would be down with all of that. My experience is that they're just going to be down with power, and
Check.
it'd be corrupted with the same politics.
It very well could be, but I think that we got to try something because the Cherokees, the Choctaws, the Creeks, there's 5 different tribes that are all going to have to fire up their own tribal courts and all this. And they already had constitutions that existed from 1866 and then again and whenever, yeah, history. But the reason is they have yet to start kicking in doors and going after the guy that has more plants than he's supposed to, or the guy that they haven't started doing that part yet. And I think maybe actually, like I
Yeah,
said,
I mean, if anybody
I
can ever think of a way of doing it, I am always down, and I attend every meeting. But one of my big issues is if anybody knows what Google Trends is, you can literally go to Google Trends and look up what people search for. And my experience is just very strongly suggestive that people are not interested in solutions. And if you look at what they're searching for when it comes to policing, it has nothing to do with solutions.
yeah, no, it's usually them trying to use the police against somebody else.
Hmm.
And that is
Bingo.
that's that. I mean, and that's where we're at with this whole Stasi bullshit report on your neighbor crap. Like, you guys are dumb. You don't even know
Totally.
how this works. Like, like you guys didn't learn anything from Iraq or the Middle East. The neighbor doesn't like the other one because he was part of another tribe or a different sect of Islam, and now they're going to send the power of the United States military to go knock on his door. Knock. Yeah, that great, great, great way to build relationships, and like that's what you guys are dealing with in these big cities. There's no way it's not. It's got to be the same thing, and we are so stupid to never realize it that we are building the same problem. Because if
Yep.
like you were saying in your book that it's usually a black person calling the cops on a black person. It's how it was in the George Floyd situation, and this isn't an absolute, but it's black people don't want to be living in crime-ridden areas. Like, it just happens to be the nature that where if you're poor, the shitty people seem to go where the poor people live, and it's just because it's cheap and easy,
Sure.
and they're going to make your life hell, and that doesn't make anybody else less or more or whatever. But I agree with you completely on the damn. Like when I was a kid, I grew up so damn poor. We had to go turn our damn water on just to take boil water in the morning because we had so many water leaks in our shitty ass trailer. You could fall through the floor. I ate powdered eggs. I didn't know what it was like to not have watered down milk that was mixed with evaporated milk, or and all these things. Like, I knew what poverty was. I might have had food. I can remember not finding food in the fridge, and going hungry. My mom never let us starve, but she struggled as a single mom does. But I don't think that I ever had any hate for the kid, that neighbor that had steaks. He lived in a trailer too. They had it a little better, but I didn't hate him. We fought with each other all the time, but it was just because he was a little shit and I wasn't. Like that's the way you
Oh,
are.
from your perspective, you were.
That's what
From your
that's
perspective.
the joke. That's the joke about it. He was a little ginger, so he had it coming, but anyways, he became a cop, and I made the joke. I was like, dude, he got picked on, and that was one of those things. And he's a good guy. My brother's always got run-ins in that town with the cops, and he's always been kind to my brother, even though my brother's a dick. He doesn't let that shit, affect him. But I also know that he's power tripping, because he had a good job doing HVAC before that, but he wanted to be a cop. So, and that town, I've watched the cops run drugs. Anybody that knows anything knows about this. The drug officer's brother actually is the meth cook in the town over, and they come right to the town. And this is common knowledge to meth crowd. And how do you have faith in those institutions to take your arms, or to manufacture them out, but then they can go buy up all the ammo? Like, look right now, the
Oh, I
cops
do
don't
not have any confidence in any of this. I'm just presenting options.
Okay, yeah. So you're doing the same thing. We're both just reeing into the wind and hoping that somebody comes up with a better answer than let's just stop. Let's just kill everybody that we disagree with. Because I like when you're talking about regulating something out. The other day, I seen somebody. I realize it's just a comment on the internet, but they made the comment that they were like, "Well, we can just regulate them out of existence." It's like, oh my God, you people are talking about regulating human beings out of existence. Like it's okay. Like
Right.
that's not what Hitler did, you know. And then you're a Nazi if you compare people to Nazis. And it's I'm at a loss. And like I said, I'm sorry that I wasn't worthy more of a debate. I think we just because I said the racism thing, I don't see it, and it existed. My grandma was racist as could be. I learned more racist terms from that Cherokee woman than you should ever learn. But like I don't remember my grandma ever going after anybody because of the race. It was a generalized statement, and she would have never said that to somebody's face because she knew it was not socially acceptable. It's a
Well,
cow.
at this point in time, at first, what I would have said is I did not find racism where I expected to find it. And now, inversely, I have certainly think there's a lot more racism than I ever thought there was. And it's just in the people who are saying that they're anti-racist.
Yes, that's the other.
So,
And like, and don't get me wrong, I'm anti-racist to the point of what it's like. It's like Black Lives Matter. Am I for the group? No. But am I for Black Lives Matter? Yes. Like Black Lives Matter, you idiots. Of course
did
they
anyone have to
matter.
say that?
Dude, we was like, oh, like, and then like you attack somebody that says all lives matter. Oh, they're discrediting the Black Lives Matter. No, like they're being inclusive. You idiots. And I love your attack on words. Like I said, man, you are making people define it. And if I would have done this before, like I said, I get angry. I'm not nearly as calm and composed as I should be about making somebody define something. But like the other day, I had a conversation. Somebody was like, "Oh, I'm Puerto Rican and Italian, so I know the plight of the Native American." I was like, "Puerto Rican's like 90% European. Like, what are you? Like, are you really going to claim to be part of the plight?" And I'm not trying to take away from them. I'm just saying you made the rules. Now play by them, and you don't like it. You don't like us playing the genetic part of it because it ends up hurting you. And like I said,
Sure.
I agree with you. We're not all the same race. We're all the same race. I am, and I am. If I go out in the sun, I get tan. If I don't go out in the sun, I go back to my pasty white ass. But I've been accused of being Mexican in the summer doing concrete, just because you get so dark. But anyways, you take that and you tell me that the my family line, which the Choctaw side married a black woman in 18 something, 1820, whatever. It's on the census roll. They were disowned by their own Choctaw family, their own brothers for marrying a black woman. Went to Oklahoma, got land. The four other brothers decided to show up, and when it came time to confirm if they were Choctaw so they could get their land, somebody got revenge. So I have a whole side of my family that are more Indian than me, darker than me, even some of them blacker than me, and straight up cannot claim their Choctaw heritage, right? Because they did not get here for the dolls rolls. And so when people want to talk about this is what our government does. It breaks us up into these little sections, and that was one of the things I wanted to point out to people was I'm Cherokee and Choctaw. I can only vote in one of those elections, right? The government only recognizes my blood quantum from one of them. I'm not 3/8 Native American or I'm not half Native American. I am only an eighth Cherokee or I'm only an eighth Choctaw. You don't get to count both.
Right, and you had to be on the rolls and
Yep.
sign up to go to the Trail of Tears. And if your
Yep.
family fled the Trail of Tears, you get no
Yep.
benefits or anything.
Yes. And that is one of those things where you look at it and you're like, you people act like this is what you guys want to do. You guys want to get reparations, because that's kind of what that was. Like, we're going to take this from you and we're going to give you reparations. It's called Oklahoma or Indian
Right.
Territory. And that's where we're going, and people think this is going to solve anything or we're going to have separate, graduating classes. And I don't know how the makeup was for you in the Marine Corps, but most of the NCOs I had in the military were black.
It seemed to be that way.
Yeah, and
I
like
don't know why that is.
right, and I'm not saying that was not diversity hires because them boys would have fucked, dude. When I
It
was
was
doing
definitely
Quantico,
disproportionate. It
dude, when
wasn't.
I
It
was
wasn't 6% of the population. That's for
no,
sure.
no, I was in Quantico and the MP Master Sergeant, what are they called? Master Gunnery Sergeant, E8. Yeah. Anyways, uh, man, he was the only one that was actually worth a damn in the whole fucking place. But I hated his damn soldiers, or his Marines. But he was a good guy. But anyways, that guy, dude, I just they don't build them like that, man. That dude was scary. like, he, I, big old dude. But
I
that
had one like that. Gunny Jones. We'll never forget him. He was the scariest dude ever.
right, like you're like, dude, you'll break me in half. And like the idea that I would have ever judged that man as not being the badass that he was because of his race. Like you guys are ignorant, dude. He would kill me. like, and like the race things just never, and we joke about it though. And I think that's what George Carlin, like one of his greatest statements he said was, "I'm not racist. I hate you all equally." And
Right.
I've been using that since I was like 9 or 10 years old, 12 years old, whatever, since the internet, and I could find it. But that I think we need to go back more towards that. And I don't want us to not know our history, but the joke, the way we move past things, especially in the military, is the joke. Traumatic things should be joked about, And I don't mean to discredit somebody.
What other choice do you have?
Right. I mean, like, are you going to really sit here and cry about it? Like, are we really going to break, like, the great people that came before us that literally had 15 kids and had three of them survive, and you're going to freaking over here losing your shit, over somebody not getting their ice cream right or whatever. And you see it everywhere. And I realize everybody has this, they live in their own bubble, but as I said, I don't think that there's anything we disagree on. I just think that you have the technical aspect from it, and you want to present that. But do you ever watch Brett Weinstein? Or
I see a
Weinstein?
little bit of him.
Right. And the guy's smart. He's not. But my thing is he's always going back to that intellectual side of things. And I'm like, dude, sometimes you just have to stand up and go, fuck you. You guys are wrong. Even if you don't have all the answers, and even if you don't have all the studies, you have to be willing to be wrong. And I'm at that point now where I don't know what the answer is, but where we're going, you people are going to kill a bunch. Like 6 million Jews died last time, right? Stalin, 50 million Russians, and then China. We've got the numbers for these policies that we're going towards, and I would love for the police to be not Stasi like before that happens. I don't want these people running around kicking people's door. The FBI rained on that Alaskan couple. All these things were, it's kind of like Waco or Ruby Ridge. No matter how you look at it, whatever you think about it, there was innocent people killed to get at somebody that you could have just sat there and waited them out. You guys ever had a siege? It's easy. Like, it's
Especially when
really
your hourly employee is paid by the government. Like, we got
right. Like,
all
this is what is.
day.
I mean, and today we would have just seen them on their cell phones. They probably wouldn't have fucking kicked off. They wouldn't have. They wouldn't have went kinetic because they would have just been able to sit there on their damn PlayStations
You'd
with
be like, are we
Wi-Fi.
still in overtime? Sweet.
Right. Yeah. And that. So I think that like what you're saying is that you're not, or I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but we are trying to use cops to police societal, issues, and most likely it shouldn't be illegal. Half the things that cops are given the authority to harass people over, it only is going to be disproportionately used on minorities, or it's only going to be disproportionately used on the poor, because
It's
obviously,
low class. It's definitely a class issue.
right, yeah, and I said I'm not going to say there's not racist cops because I've been to jail and the cops are racist as shit, but it they didn't have any authority. They were punk ass fucking jailers. They're just being stupid. They most likely, what was their worst crime that they did was they said some mean words. It didn't. There was no victim
Yeah. And
really.
I always wonder about racist terminology anyway, because, like, I don't know. When people say insults, they're trying to say things that trigger you, not
When I
things that
fight,
they actually
when I fight,
believe.
I've been called racist because, dude, I will call an Indian a blanket ass or what. I mean, I will. It doesn't matter. I want you to fight me. We're gonna fight. Like, you wanted to act all bad and whatever. Yeah, I'm gonna give you the fighting words. And that was when, did I would I never, like, once again, I wouldn't have been saying that to that master sergeant. Wouldn't have been saying it to that master gunnery sergeant. No, because I didn't have that opinion of him. Because I wanted a reaction. And so, but what I mean by it is the a jailer, is anybody in authority trying to use fighting words. And yes, going and calling a black man, the N word in the damn jail as the person that's not allowed to be able to, I can't touch you. If I touch you, the rest of my life is in prison, right? But you're wanting to get that reaction out of me, and then people, oh, woe is me, he ripped the guy's head off, and went ahead and got 20 years to life, and people are like, what the hell is wrong with him? Like, man, some people just get sick of it and they go ahead. They're like, fuck it. And I realize that there's something wrong with them, but also, don't push the buttons of crazy people. If you've got, and that was like those crazy people up in one of the northern states. They had a neighbor they fought with. He was a GWAT veteran, and they just kept on court battle. And finally, dude walked outside and shot both of them with an AR and killed himself. And everybody was like, oh, he's a piece of shit. And I'm like, man, I'm not telling you what he did was right, but I'm telling you is you fuck with somebody long enough and you take everything from them. Don't be surprised when they killdozer your ass. People will draw the line in the sand, and I realize not everybody does. People survived the Gulag and people survived Soviet Russia, but there's a lot of them that didn't, and they're the ones that maybe they didn't make it to the end, but at least they went out their way, and I can always give somebody credit for that. I don't know if you
I would
know.
definitely prefer to go out my own way.
Yeah, that's me, and and I don't condone it because I realize what it means, but I don't want somebody to ever be able to take that in your suicide statements, man. Like, that is one of the realest things. Like, everybody keeps on hating on all this, and I don't want people committing suicide, but people do not understand the pain that some people go through, and the idea that the state can force you to stay in that pain, and then that they're the ones profiting from your existence, you know that's what we put all this effort into, is to make a productive society, which is profit, and they don't want you checking out. They've got you figured out for so much time, and they're okay if you check out at 67, but they need to get that work out of you before you retire.
Yeah.
Man,
If we're
I'm a
going to be
slave.
cynical, that is a nice cynical
Right,
outlook.
I'm slave labor. Okay, I know what I am. Like, Like I paid enough into Social Security, I could have retired, or I could become disabled and live out, full payments before I was even 30. And that's I wouldn't do that. But you look at the people that run our country, that's what they do. And we keep on putting them in. And everybody gets mad that you blame them for what they're electing, and they're like, "Well, who did you elect?" Like, man, I'm just a dumbass trying to do what's right. I don't know who to elect. I'm expecting some smart person to step in and actually do their fucking job and lead us. And
Yeah, that's not our system.
no, but I mean, like, where do we couldn't put you into leadership. You don't want to be in fucking politics, you know.
I don't, and nobody would vote for me.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there are people that would vote for you, but you couldn't get the pockets fleeced in the right place. I mean, hell, look what's going on in your state right now. That there's people passing mandates just because of what's going on, and
Yep.
we ain't want to go down. We don't want to go down that road. And that's the same thing as here we are with double standards, everything, and we're sitting here worried about, did the cops get defunded $6 billion, or did they just get refunded $6 billion? Because like I agree, the cops had I was telling somebody this the other day after your book. I was like, do you know, man, that they and I've heard that there's like $230 trillion in unsecured pensions and things like that in the United States. And it's a lot of police forces and fire departments and things like that. And these guys were all told that this is what you're going to get. Do 20 years. This is what you're going to get. And then they moved the bar. They changed it on them. And
Yeah,
then
they
they
did it
thought,
in Baltimore. They changed it from 20 to 25 years on these cats.
right, yeah, and that's like 67 now for your Social Security. They
Yep.
they move these rules, and then they expect to still have quality work, or quality workers. And and if you ever met a welder in your life, the one thing we will do is quit. Like, that's one thing every welder has to be good at before they get good at welding, is getting good at quitting the job, because that's your only argument you have. Because you're working for a refinery or whatever. Every day they're shut down, it's millions of dollars they're losing in production. And they come in and they tell you, "Oh, you're going to make this, you're going to do this," and you're like, "Watch this, motherfucker." Walk out. "Oh, dude, you can't find another welder because we all talk to each other," and that's our bargaining power, right? And we don't somehow do this with our elections. We can't all agree on it because it's not money. It's not our kids. It's, even though it is, they've removed it one, two, three steps from the news cycle, so people, they're paying attention to the drama instead of, like they're doing the lip service, but they're not actually looking for answers. So on violence, the way you solve the violence in the cities, in my opinion, and this is not a popular opinion because it's the same way I feel about Africa and everywhere else. You arm everybody. Everybody has guns. Like, I realize that a bunch of people are going to die, but man, you want to talk about evolution real fucking quick. Like, and I know that that's genocidal at that point, but at least maybe people would stop and think about what they're doing. But I doubt it. But the it seems that the world was a better place when there was consequences for every stupid action. And now that we've tried to make it more bumper proof and everything like that, we have people that don't care about each other. They're not worried about their neighbor hating them because they don't think their neighbor is going to ever be a purpose to them. And we're both guilty of this, I promise you, because we're probably, like, or at least in my opinion, I'm a very independent person. I don't like help. And it's not that I don't won't accept help, it's that you don't want to be the weak link. So you always make sure you are carrying your weight and some.
Or
Right.
whenever you help, whenever you accept help, those motherfuckers act like you owe them something later on.
That's my big one. Like, people are like, I'll work with people for 2 years, and like, dude, you won't even take a candy bar or anything. Like, fuck
Like,
you. I
no,
don't.
man, I'd rather not.
Yeah,
I don't.
like,
I don't want to hear about it later.
yeah, like, man, you might ask me for $1 one day, and I just
Yeah,
ain't got one, and then I'm gonna feel like shit because I ate your candy bar.
that's right. Now holding that over my head.
Yeah. So, anyways, that's like I said, I don't think really we've had. I figured that your gun debate was a solid thing, like, where you're like, oh yeah, guns and untrained professionals, it skyrockets murders, and it might, but in Chicago,
My
when
problem's
one person,
handguns, man. It's handguns, handguns, handguns. It's a problem.
and I get it, but like, how do you stop the guns from getting in their hands? Like, because I mean, look
Well,
at
I
every
mean,
place
if
that
we're
you
already
can.
down that road, I'm cool. I just want people to acknowledge that handguns are a problem.
Right.
That's
And
it.
all right, okay. And like I said, I carry a handgun well, not everywhere I go, but man, I like I give a shit. Man, my biggest fear is to be wrong. Like that is one of my I hate being wrong about something more than most things. And anywhere your round goes and it hits the wrong thing, even if I was found not guilty, growing up, that was my mom's big deal. She was like, you don't realize when you kill somebody that you're not just hurting them, you're hurting their kid. No matter what crime they did, you're ripping somebody else's child from their hands.
Sure.
And that was my mom. My mom she was real with us from birth. Like that's just the way she was. And I guess because of the way she grew up being beat, raped, all the shit that you don't want to be done to you. And that leaves you with a bit of compassion for those people, I guess, because even those people were loved by somebody. And maybe they didn't maybe they don't deserve to live, because of what they've done to innocent people. But
And it can
you
just
know,
be a biological malfunction.
yeah,
It could be something that actually just they need to go to the doctor for.
right. And then here you are taking somebody, you're inflicting the same pain you felt
Yep.
because somebody was. And I said I
One is
don't.
vengeance, and one is a biological malfunction. Who's
Right.
less moral?
Are you mad at the guy that had a stroke and he wrecked in and killed the bus full of
Yep.
children because he had a stroke? Well, he should have had a medical. Man, the scientists can't find everything. They don't know everything.
That's what I'm saying. With all these answers, every time I've gotten power and I've peeked behind the curtain, I did not find what I expected to find.
So there's like that's back to the people's pundit thing. Does it really do any good to fund any more research? And I think we shouldn't stop funding research. It's just, the idea that we were going to find some secret recipe to solve this, it all goes back to the biggest problem. Science doesn't work if you can't control the you don't have a control. And what is your control? Human. You
That's
don't
the trouble
have
with social sciences. There's no controls.
right. Yeah, like, every culture is different. So where do we like? I don't want you to stop doing this because I'm just like I said, I've caught your stuff when it first came out on Rogan, but man, I was still doing acid and shit like that, trying to solve my own fucking mysteries in life.
People were taking my stories at that time and choosing how it fit their preconceived narrative. They weren't listening to what I was saying, that's for sure. So you didn't miss anything.
I don't know, man. Like I said, I think that there was things that like I was a very different person at 20 years old than I am now.
I mean, in
Nobody's good.
media, like the whole
Oh,
media
right. Okay.
thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I said, back then, and that was, you would have never got on Rogan now. Like
There's not a
Rogan,
chance. That dude, despite his promises, that guy will never speak to me now.
dude, I've seen how he acted with Ted Kennedy or Tim Kennedy. I've seen how he acted with Andy Stump. These guys they're tier one operators, and he puts them on a pedestal, and you can see that it doesn't matter who it is. He's looking for the same end result. We're going to have a peaceful conversation. You're going to tell me what you have, and we're going to agree to disagree and walk away instead of actually trying to like change each other's opinions.
Right.
That he's not, and I appreciate it for what it is, but it's no different than Tim Pool. It's no different. Eric Hunley has upset me with some things. Not that he did something to me, but something he said about body language or Guantanamo Bay or something. I want to be upset. Fuck, man, you've upset me. With whatever, like the gun thing. I was like, God damn it, I like this guy, and then he's gonna go and fucking go against guns. Like, great, man, another tyrant. But no, you're not. You're literally saying handguns in the like handguns in cities in the hands of every damn person that wants to put an extended magazine out of it and just clack off a bunch of rounds into a house. And
It
that's really
has
what
results that you don't want. That's
yeah.
all I'm saying.
Right, but I mean, but then go back to it. Is it really because of the guns, or is it because of the policy that allows the gun people or the people you wielding these guns for this to go back onto the street and perpetuate the same crimes again? Because
I don't know. All I'm saying is, in the world, for the most part, this isn't my concern. If some dude in my front road right here in front of my house starts clapping off some rounds, he's catching one right to his dome.
right. That's how I feel about it.
But for the rest of you, this might be a problem.
Right. But that's the thing is like, why can we not, like, why are we making I made this comment on Barnes earlier where I was like, well, here we are regulating me, like, motherfucker, I can shoot. I know I can shoot. I trust that I'm not going to, like, I would hate to say that I would do it. I would never make a shoot through for most things, but man, if it's in the situation, I would rather my buddy shoot me trying to get the bad guy than him miss or, than him not take the shot and the bad guy get me. I will always take those. And people are like, "Oh, that's horrible. What the hell's wrong with you, man?" I got a dedication to the bad guy losing. You don't understand. Like this ain't just about me. This is about my ideology. There is a right and wrong, and but I don't think it happens at the end of a badge and a gun. I don't think it happens at the end of a military rifle. I think it starts with the people. We didn't win these marches and these wars and stuff by policy and laws. We won them by blood, sweat, and tears. Somebody had to be willing to put their shit on the line. And we were talking like earlier. I made the comment that I've watched some of these cops, pull the trigger preemptively, and I called them pussies, right? And maybe they're not pussies, right? And like you said, maybe they just weren't cut out for that field of work. But dude, the fact that they're still on the job and they still get to go carry a gun, and that's the kind of decisions they make in those situations. And I'm not saying that every one of them that I seen was that cops, and that should be the end of their careers. But the idea that we investigate ourselves, we determine that we're not guilty, and good luck. Like Ashley Babbitt, like I don't give Ben. I did hide. I mean, I'm not anything special. I was nothing special in the military, but I have done some high security details that had high value people. President, you don't get more fucking protected than that dude. Seriously, And I was a 17-year-old kid or 18-year-old kid standing next to this in that situation, and we all knew that we didn't stand a chance. Somebody else was watching us, et cetera, et cetera. You know how this goes. There's a contingency for everything when you have that high value of a target. But we are. Where was it going with this? The the idea that you can stop something bad from happening at all times is never should be legislated. You can't. It's the Patriot Bill. It's the like Ashley Babbitt. Like I said, they were so worried about those people. She passed the last layer of security. Like, why was that the last layer of security? That door was the last layer. So she had a backpack. She could have had an IED on her. Okay, so now we're going to assume every person rushing the door is an IED. But like, well, and that cop, we go from no unarmed person should ever be shot to that bitch deserved it, and that's the media narrative, and that's what the cops are supposed to work with. The difference between what happened to Ashley Babbitt and what happened to what was that kid's name from Ahmaud Arbery, right? Ahmaud Arbery down in Georgia ran up and grabbed that kid's gun, that they were trying to do a citizen's arrest on him, and everybody's like, "Oh, it's murder," like, but Ashley Babbitt's not murder. Like, well, that guy, they didn't have a right to point guns at him. They never pointed a gun at him. He ran up and grabbed the gun and got shot. So, and that's where, like I said, I don't think you disagree with me on the police thing, but where do we fix that? Because they're not going to get rid of the lackeys. The Democrats are never, not just the Democrats and Republicans are never going to get rid of their securities authority. They would never want to be exposed to danger. And then you got the cops that are willing to work for them for that trade-off of being able to do 90 and a 25 and walk away scot-free and get away with your DUIs and all that other little crap that you get the perk of being the authoritative voice in court.
Sure. I mean, I don't think you're going to stop it. It might be a necessary evil to accept some of that, like there's the necessary evil accepting some of the handgun things if we're going to have this overall libertarian mindset.
Right.
I just want to say, that we can't freak out. It's like people go around And people will. When I said something on a Slate thing was that people always harp on thinking that it's like this ultra left thing. I said we create the stage and then we're surprised by the results. And they think I'm talking about racism, and I'm not. I'm talking about the whole damn thing. Like we've literally created this, and then we're like, oh my god. But I wanted to just say, yeah, we are accepting this loss. We are accepting mass shootings because of this greater purpose. And if that's not what you want to do, then maybe we should do where some states go to their authoritarian bullshit and some states creep over to a more libertarian mindset.
I'm starting to get to the point that, man, we might need a peaceful divide
I would
because
be much of a fan of that, and hopefully Arizona will get their shit together, and I don't have to move.
right, yeah, that's me. Like I like Oklahoma was a shitty place to live. There's a reason why I went to the military, right? And then I came back and it was a shitty place to live. And then they legalized weed and we got on the gun shit. And it's like, oh, we're gonna stop putting people in prison for stupid shit. Are you guys sure? Yeah. Holy fuck. Okay, I'll stay. Like, and that's Texas is. I would never go to Texas. Fuck Texas. Like, they put people in prison for felony, for 1 gram of weed. Was down there building some silos one time and had a friend get a little hemmed up like that. And it's just that's the but at least there would be a state that you could go to, get away from the federal government, send in the ATF and the damn FBI, and to go roll up Granny or whatever, using this hammer on innocent citizens, and that was the thing is I can't believe we went to that. I mean, and it goes back to qualified immunity, and my state probably hates me because I called and cussed them out about them trying to protect cops' identities and stuff. And I'm a firm believer, film everybody. If you're out in public or you want to act on public, man, the film needs to be like, I'm sorry, but the camera, like, if the NSA has the authority to look into my most private things that are on my computer, why isn't there somebody reviewing every cop's final footage, his footage, and like it locked in, not that he could go and delete or turn it off or anything like that. I mean, homeboy, if your camera is not recording you, you're fired, because we cannot trust you. Because like I said, you're going to go into a courtroom and they're going to take your testimony over a citizen's every time. And that is the absolute. I mean, the fact that judges allow that and knowing the science that we know, it's just like the gun debate. We can all agree that the rifles aren't the problem. Rifles don't commit the crimes. It's the handguns. And the handguns are usually stopped by non-handguns, surprisingly, because that's the nature of handguns. They don't really carry ammo with them. They're not prepared, or if they do, they just have 18 rounds, 20 rounds, whatever, and they run back to their trap house to go get more. And that violence, I don't think it's no different than the MS-13. There's no race to that. There's no, like, once again, it's human. It's human nature. You take the supplies of the rich, and you put it right in front of the wealth or the extravagance of the rich, and you put it right in front of people. Look at Mexico and look at America, and then like, why wouldn't they want to come here? We're the ones sitting here making it easy for them to get here. So you can't be mad at a Mexican that comes here and tries to make a better life. That is stupid. You're mad at the border, and like I said, I'm not against people coming across. It's none of that shit. It's you cannot have a system and any kind of controls when the rules don't apply equally to everybody. If the system doesn't actually follow through with the science when they say they're going to look into this research, we're going to hire a black diversity hire that is more more authoritarian, racist than any Ku Klux Klan member ever was in a position of government power. And that's the crap that you're seeing. Like Obama literally screwed the blacks. Like, I don't know how else they don't even realize it yet. And and I don't think that it's just him, but what I'm saying is that they believe that a black man obviously is going to look out for a black man, and that's like me believing that Michael Wood is going to fucking worry about all white people because he's a white person.
You should definitely not believe that. I'm most likely going to look out for myself.
Right. That's maybe I'm so, like I said, back to that whole idea. I think I might be something broken in me, man. Like, I just don't have a lot of emotions for people. I have emotions, at least I think I have emotions, but like I don't like people trying to control people through power means, and that's what I see all this as. It's not. There's no honest want to help people. This is all just a power grift, and the cops are just as guilty. And that's what I think maybe where you're getting the hate is that you're willing to say that thin blue line is a real stupid idea. And it's not that I don't even have anything against it until I realize that it's doing the same thing. We're breaking ourselves down into veterans. We're breaking ourselves down into the cops. And this is your in group. This is the people you look out for. And if you do that, next thing you know, the doctors don't fucking treat your gunshot wound, because you're a cop. And that's where I think we're going with this. Because look at how the cops have already been treated like shit in cities, and some of it well deserved. But back to the thing is they're not attacking the individual, they're attacking the group, and the individual suffers, not the group. And the only way around that I see is to keep calling out the bullshit. But are you going to make any changes without going and being a police chief or being on one of these boards? I said I'll write to the Cherokees about it. I mean, I can't change anything. Obviously, I'm just the guy. But maybe if they could start having their cops go through, those kind of training situations, because they are claiming that the Indians have the right to be tried by the Indians. Well, then maybe they should make sure that when the Indians are getting arrested, it's not racist. You can guarantee that, right? By making sure their policies don't allow for racist policies that aren't going to, because
Unless they want them to be. I'm not
right,
the
and then,
boss. I just tell
right,
you what things do.
right. So that's what I'm saying. That, like, at least maybe if you can go and tell them, like, hey, you guys have a history of doing stupid shit. Let's approach it, because the Cherokees. I'm not saying they're perfect. 'Cause believe me, man, they go libtard all the time, but they're more willing to try something new. These people, they're not entrenched into this has been the police force we've had since 1836. Or whatever some of these places have had police forces for. They've had the White Horsemen for a long time, but I just think that maybe, because like you're from Arizona or you live in Arizona, and that place has got like one of the highest propensity or like densities of former veterans, right? I don't know if you guys are like second or third. I know California's up there too somehow, but Arizona's got it going on. And when you look at your society, do you think that plays a role into it? Because that's my other thing about these cities is, yes, they have a portion of them that serves, but then how many of them are just part of the daily grind that just getting eaten up every day?
Yeah, man, I think most of us are. I've always been kind of weirded out coming from an East Coast when I came here, and it was like, you don't need handgun permits, you don't need, you have weed, you don't need helmets on a bike.
Yeah.
Everything's kind of easy with the government, but I've gotten used to it.
Right. Yeah, it's real nice, ain't it? Like when I lived in DC, I grabbed a guy he was robbing a CVS, and he was just taking. I was young, I came from a state where you seen somebody's robbing the place, you stopped them. That was it was what you do. You help everybody out, and that guy's robbing. If he wanted food, we would have given him food. And I don't think that's how it is in the cities. Somebody comes over and they're like, "Hey man, I ain't got no food." Like, tough shit, get the fuck out of here. I ain't got no food either. And that would never happen, man. Like you could, I'm sure you've noticed it. Yeah, people might give you a hard time if you show up a second time, but you're not going to find somebody that's not going to lend you a box of ammo. They might even lend you a gun. Like that is the way that society is. And the idea that we would ever regulate those people based on what goes on in Atlanta, Baltimore, New
Oh,
York.
that's bananas. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, yeah. So that's where I thought maybe, like I said, that once again, that's not what your position is, and I think maybe you just keep on going up against really stupid people that want to keep on bringing up the same old fucking argument and
I do
telling
feel
you
that
that,
way.
yeah, because like I said, that one guy, he was like, we'll just self-regulate ourselves. Like, yeah, because
Go ahead, bro. You're
yeah,
in
yeah,
America. No one's stopping you. You can literally get a bunch of your hit friends, start your own town. The hippies did it before. Start your own
yep,
goddamn town and do your own thing. We'll leave you alone. Have
yeah.
fun.
Yeah, just don't be upset when it fails. Don't make me
Right.
come fucking save it. Don't call for us to come dig the hole. And like I said, I don't think we're gonna have any. That's the end of it, man. Like there's
Well,
that
then
real.
that's cool by me. It's approaching 420 anyway, so
Yeah,
we
my
may as
bong is
well
waiting.
long live the traditions. Oh, you passed it, but I'm coming up. Hey, it's 420 somewhere.
Oh yeah, no. Believe me, I was afraid that you were gonna call me because I'm sure you know what dabs are. Well, I fucking ripped on a big ass dab and couldn't stop choking. And you called. I was sitting there pounding a Pepsi trying to get my throat to dry up.
Oh, that's a shame because that would have totally been the intro.
Oh yeah, I bet it would have been better with the bong though. You got to keep with the traditions and everything half baked.
Okay. So how about you think about anything else? If anything else comes up, or if you get anybody else that wants to come and kind of bang out some nuances, I'll be all game to do that. And if we get any follow-up questions where anybody wants to hold your feet to the fire, I'll get back with you and make you do that.
Oh, sounds good to me.
All right, brother. Be safe. It was good to talk to you, Chris.
Yeah, you have a good one, man. Bye.
Keep it, bro.
You are only old non-aggression. Once that lesson sets in, you'll see a session. But you got an affection for no progression, regression. The best don't obsess about oppression. Possess weapons, mind and body protect when defense is necessary. Appendix carry. This will vary. Nothing is foolproof, but fools fool you. So do you and lose dudes that want you to lose. So hacks can use you as a stat, but they have been wrong. You are not defined by just your skin tone. So why attach yourself and piggyback the wealth you didn't earn or lack yourself? I'm telling you to own up to your own success and failures. It's a reason why these sleazy guys have you focused on all the bad news, hoping that it is tattooed in your mind that you will wince without assistance. And now you're dealing with others' experiences. You have no identity of your own, and you're defined by everybody else. No sense of self, hollow and inept, cause you have nothing of your own, and you're defined by everybody else. No sense of self, hollow and inept. I'm not undermining nobody's struggle, and I'm not saying life's a box of chocolate or carnivals. I like to weigh in cause you might have got what you bargained for. I hope you take it in a lot, this ain't an argument for. Part of you gotta be smart enough to know why you partying up. Your art really sucks, the audience starting you up. Chamber of echoes ringing, same brain with names changing, hearing opposing opinion and you malfunction. Characters non-playable, that's why you hate to move. And when you try to save a dude, they get to hating you. They don't want to be saved, but one of these days someone will say they told you so. You're gonna get played, but that's your business. Don't get your wig split acting an idiot. Back up a tidbit, this ain't a diss, kid, so list this. I wish this misfit would get pissed enough to get it, but he mad at all the wrong folk because he missed it. Yo, look, this ain't for sing-alongs. I don't want you to get it wrong. I know what you was tripping on. You've been lied to your whole life, fool. The right to beside you. That's why you always focus on what the white dudes do. Fist in the air, screaming loud and being proud. But you are going through the motions. What you leaving out? What have you been accomplishing? Did something get done within a month? You've been marching for the fun of it. The only thing you got is exercise. Wise up and trying to get your eyes up. It's like an exorcist, size up. Existential, he essentially has no mind of his own, and that's why he's an NPC.